At 15, I was kicked out in a storm because of a lie my sister told. My mom yelled, "Get out of my house." I didn't fight back. I just walked. 20 minutes later, she laughed about it in a text, not realizing Dad was reading it on the living room TV. Now, the rain comes sideways. An atmospheric river drowning Seattle in gray. My thin hoodie is a soaked rag. The iron gate stands cold and locked. Through the glowing window, they look like a portrait of peace. The cold isn't just on my skin, it is inside my bones. My jaw shakes so violently that my teeth click together like dice in a cup. 20 minutes ago, the house smelled of roasted garlic and rosemary. I was setting the table for a family dinner. Then came the scream. Tiffany ran down the stairs with a mask of devastated innocence. She held her phone out like a weapon. She claimed $12,000 vanished from her account. The inheritance was gone, and I was the thief. I didn't get to deny it. My mother, Patricia, didn't check the bank app or ask for proof. She looked at me with immediate, absolute disgust. She crossed the room in 2 strides. The slap echoed louder than the thunder outside. It wasn't a slap of discipline. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. She grabbed my arm and dragged me to the door. She threw me out like garbage forgotten on the curb. Standing here, I realize she isn't angry. She is actually enjoying this. My phone sits at 12% battery. I don't press the intercom. Any normal teenager would be screaming for mercy or apologizing for things they didn't do. I stay silent instead. This is the trap of normalized cruelty. My mother wants me to fall to my knees so she can feel benevolent. She spent years making me the villain so Tiffany could shine. The realization kills my fear instantly. It replaces panic with something hard and sharp. I am done playing my part in her fantasy. 2 beams of white light cut through the downpour like lasers. My father's SUV doesn't slow down as it approaches the estate. He knows the gate code, but he doesn't use it. He sees me standing in the freezing rain and makes a choice. The engine roars with a deep, mechanical growl. He jumps the curb, tires tearing through the pristine sod. There is a satisfying crunch as he plows through Patricia's prize, winning bushes. He bypasses the gate and stops inches from the front porch. He is out of the car before the engine dies. He wraps his heavy coat around me in one fluid motion. The warmth is shocking, but his eyes are colder than the ice storm. He doesn't ask for my side of the story. He looks at the locked door and his face goes dark. "Stay behind me," he says. His voice is low and terrifyingly calm. He walks up the steps and kicks the door. The wood splinters like a gunshot. The golden child narrative is about to burn. The transition is instant and jarring. 1 second, I am in a chaotic, freezing hurricane. The next, I stand in a silent foyer that smells of lavender and expensive tea. The contrast makes me dizzy as water drips from my hair onto the marble. Patricia stands in the middle of the room, a porcelain teacup frozen halfway to her mouth. She doesn't look guilty. She looks annoyed, like a hostess whose dinner party was interrupted by a rude guest. "Have you lost your mind, Robert?" she snaps. She sets the cup down with a sharp clink that echoes against the high ceilings. "You ruined the flower beds." I told you I was handling her discipline. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. My father doesn't even look at her. He doesn't validate her with an argument. He walks right past her, his wet boots leaving dark, muddy streaks on the cream Persian rug. He is heading for Tiffany. Tiffany is curled up on the sofa under a cashmere blanket. She looks wide-eyed and fragile, clutching her iPad to her chest like a shield. "Robert, do not you dare ignore me," my mother yells. Her voice rises in an octave of pure desperation. "Your daughter is a thief. She stole $12,000 from her own sister." My father stops in front of Tiffany. He towers over her, dripping rainwater onto the expensive upholstery, while she tries to shrink back. She opens her mouth to whimper, attempting to summon those crocodile tears that have worked for 17 years. My father simply holds out his hand. "Give it to me," he says. His voice is low and steady. "It is private." Tiffany squeaks. She looks at Mom for help. I said, "Give it to me." He doesn't wait for her permission. He reaches down and rips the iPad out of her hands. "It isn't a request anymore. It is an investigation." "That is my property," Tiffany shrieks. It isn't a scared sound. It is the entitled screech of someone who has never been told no. She lunges for the device, her manicured nails clawing at Dad's arm. He holds it high out of her reach, keeping it away like a dangerous toy. "Give it back to her, Robert," Mom shouts. "You are violating her privacy. You have no right to treat your daughter like a criminal in this house." "I pay the bill," he says. His voice cuts through their noise like a blade. "I own the account, and I have every right." He doesn't waste time with passcodes or ethics. He walks to the 80-inch screen mounted above the fireplace. This is the screen Mom uses to show serene landscapes to guests. He taps a single icon. The mountain meadow vanishes. In its place, Tiffany's home screen appears, magnified to a terrifying 4 feet wide for everyone. "Robert, stop this immediately," Mom yells. She moves to block the television with her body. "Move," he says. He doesn't have to shout. The sheer weight of his authority pushes her aside. He opens the Venmo app. There is no technical wizardry involved. It is just there, right at the top of the transaction history. Sent to Lux Life Resale. $12,500. The memo simply reads investment piece. The silence in the room becomes suffocating. Mom stares at the glowing numbers on the giant screen. She blinks, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. "That proves nothing," she stammers, desperate to keep her worldview from collapsing. Sierra could have done that. She could have stolen the iPad while Tiffany was sleeping and made the transfer herself. "Is that right?" Dad asks. He doesn't look at her. He swipes up on the glass. The room holds its breath as he opens the mail app. The latest email is timestamped 3 hours ago. Subject: Your order has shipped. Sender: Chanel Official. The tracking number is live. The delivery address isn't our house or a secure locker. It is addressed to Tiffany St. James, care of her best friend's house 2 streets over. Did Nova order a $5,000 handbag to your friend's house? Tiffany, Dad asks. His voice is a low rumble. Did she forge this confirmation email too? Tiffany is shaking now. The tears streaming down her face aren't the cute, sympathetic ones she used on Mom. These are the splotchy tears of a cornered animal. "I needed it," she sobs. "Everyone has one. You don't understand the pressure." "But that is not the worst part," Dad says. He is not done. He swipes again and opens her messages. The group chat pinned at the top is active. The last message was sent 5 minutes ago, while I was freezing outside. Right while Mom was pouring tea. Everyone reads Tiffany's words on the screen. "OMG, you guys, it actually worked. The loser is literally freezing outside the gate right now. Mom is totally buying it. I am a genius. Bye Nova." Attached is a blurry, zoomed-in photo taken from the living room window. It shows me standing in the rain, shaking and small. The golden child narrative doesn't just crack. It shatters into a million irreparable, jagged pieces. Dad reads the message 3 times in total silence. He slowly turns to look at Mom. "You said you were protecting the family," he whispers. "Look at that screen. Patricia. Look at what you were actually protecting." "She is 16, Robert." Mom's voice is shrill and desperate. She steps in front of the TV, trying to block the damning image with her own body. It is just a mistake. Girls her age do stupid things when they feel threatened. "We can return the bag," Mom continues. "We can get the money back. It is just money." My father repeats her words. His voice isn't loud, it is dead. He doesn't look at her or at Tiffany, who is now sobbing into her hands. He looks at the iPad again. He saw something else in the mail app that caught his eye before he switched to the messages. "Move, Patricia," he says. "No, you have humiliated her enough." He steps around her and taps the screen. The TV shifts again. He isn't looking at the inbox anymore. He has opened the trash folder. "What are you doing?" Mom demands, grabbing at his arm. "Stop digging. You are just trying to find reasons to hate her." "I am trying to find the truth," he says. He opens a deleted email on the large screen. "It is an acceptance letter sent yesterday for my full STEM scholarship." The silence in the room is thick and heavy. Patricia stares at the screen, her face turning a sickly shade of gray. The deleted email from the STEM program sits there like a digital ghost. It is a haunting indictment of the daughter she spent years coddling. Robert does not speak. He just stands there, his wet coat dripping onto the polished wood. The only sound is the rain lashing against the windows. Tiffany begins to shake, her eyes darting toward the door. I feel the sudden weight of the last 15 years, lifting off my shoulders. It is a physical sensation like a heavy chain snapping. My mother tries to find words, but her mouth only twitches. "Robert," she finally whispers. "It was a mistake." She was just worried about her sister leaving. Robert turns his gaze to her, and she flinches. "It is not a mistake to destroy a child's future," he says. His voice is a low, dangerous rumble. "This ends tonight." Tiffany jumps up from the sofa, the cashmere blanket falling to the floor. She looks like a cornered animal, wild and desperate. "You can't do this to me," she screams. "I am the one everyone loves. You are just the boring nerd." Dad doesn't flinch at her outburst. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone. He is dialing a number I recognize. It is the family lawyer. Patricia tries to grab the phone, but Robert moves with surprising speed. The air in the foyer feels charged with electricity. Every secret is out, laid bare under the bright LED lights. Patricia realizes her influence is gone. She looks at me, and for the first time, I see genuine fear in her eyes. It is not fear for my safety, but fear for her own status. The legal trust that owns this house is ironclad. If she is deemed a threat to me, she loses everything. Her hands are shaking now. Robert finishes the call and looks at the front door. "The sheriff will be here in 10 minutes, he announces. Patricia gasps, her hand flying to her throat. "You are calling the police on your own wife," she asks. Robert shakes his head slowly. "I am protecting my daughter from a predator." Tiffany begins to wail. A high-pitched sound that fills the room. It is the sound of a spoiled child finally hitting a wall. The game is over. I walk over to the fireplace and stare at the screen one last time. The Venmo receipt, the channel order, and the deleted acceptance letter are all there. It is a museum of betrayal. My father comes to stand beside me. He puts a heavy hand on my shoulder. "I am so sorry, Nova," he whispers. "I should have seen this sooner." I don't answer him. I just watch my mother scramble to pack a small silk bag. The blue and red lights of the sheriff's cruiser reflect off the wet driveway. The colors dance across the walls of the foyer. Patricia is begging now. Her pride completely dissolved. She promises to change and to make it right. Robert ignores her. He opens the front door, letting in a gust of freezing wind and rain. The sheriff walks up the steps, his boots heavy and deliberate. He looks at the shattered door and then at us. Sheriff Miller knows this family well. He has been to our holiday parties and seen the perfect fuckhead. He looks at the iPad screen and his expression hardens. Robert hands him the legal papers regarding the trust. The sheriff reads them quickly and nods. "Mom, you need to step outside," he says to my mother. Patricia looks at me, waiting for me to intervene. I stay silent. I offer no mercy and no words. I just watch. They are led out into the storm. Tiffany is still screaming about her privacy and her rights. Patricia is silent, her head bowed against the wind. I watch them through the window until the cruiser pulls away. The red lights fade into the darkness of the trees. The house is quiet now, but it is a different kind of silence. It is the silence of a clean slate. My father walks to the kitchen to find a towel. He hands me a dry shirt and a mug of hot cocoa. The warmth of the ceramic feels incredible against my numb palms. We sit at the kitchen island together. The iPad is turned off, and the giant screen is dark. My father opens his laptop and begins typing. He is writing to the STEM director to explain the situation. He promises me that I will be on that plane in June. I take a sip and finally breathe. The steam from the cocoa rises in soft, white swirls against the dark kitchen tile. My hands are still red from the cold, but the shaking has stopped. Dad sits across from me, his eyes fixed on the empty space where Patricia used to stand. He looks older tonight, the shadows deep beneath his tired eyes. He reaches for my hand, his grip firm and steady. "I am so sorry I let it get this far," he says softly. "I should have protected you." I look at the mahogany door, still splintered and hanging crooked on its heavy hinges. The storm outside has turned into a dull roar, a background noise to the new silence. It feels like the house is exiling, releasing years of held breath and hidden secrets. My phone vibrates on the counter, finally reaching a 20% charge. A notification flashes. It is a text from an unknown number. I stare at the screen, my heart beginning to race again. The nightmare is not quite over. The message is a single photo of the legal trust document my father showed the sheriff. It is followed by a chilling sentence: "You think you won, but you missed the second page." I slide the phone toward my father without a word. He reads it, and his face turns a ghostly, ashen white. He stands up so quickly his chair clatters against the floor. He runs to the foyer and begins searching through his leather briefcase with trembling, frantic hands. He pulls out the original deed, flipping through the pages until he reaches the very back. His finger stops on a small, handwritten clause in the margin. It is signed by my grandmother, the woman who had established the fund for my education. My father swears under his breath, a sound of pure frustration. The trust does not just protect me. It contains a shared occupancy clause that usually requires a unanimous family vote. However, the safety clause my father cited to the sheriff acts as an emergency override. Patricia and Tiffany have a legal right to stay for 1 hour to pack, unless they are proven to be an immediate criminal threat. This means their victory is an illusion. The sound of tires on the wet gravel cuts through the room like a blade. I look out the window and see the familiar headlights of my mother's car. They are back. The sheriff's cruiser is nowhere to be seen. Patricia must have called her own lawyer the moment they left the driveway. She found the loophole that says she cannot be evicted without a court order unless a felony is in progress. The front door creaks open, and she walks in, followed by a smug, dry Tiffany. They are soaking wet but look victorious. Patricia brushes a wet strand of hair from her face and smiles thinly at us. "We are not going anywhere, Robert," she says. "This house belongs to the family and I am still part of it." Tiffany smirks at me, her eyes gleaming with a renewed, sharp malice. "You can't kick us out for a few mean texts and a little shopping spree." She walks to the sofa and sits down, crossing her legs. The power balance has shifted once more. My father stands his ground, but the legal weight of the document is heavy against him. He looks at the sheriff's card on the table. He knows he cannot force them out again tonight, without risking an arrest himself. Patricia walks to the kitchen and pours herself a glass of wine. She acts as if the last hour never happened. She is back in control of her domain. I feel the walls closing in, the warmth of the cocoa turning bitter. I look at the iPad, still sitting on the counter near my phone. A new idea begins to form in my mind. If the trust requires a unanimous vote, then every member counts. I am 15, but the document identifies me as a primary beneficiary with full voting rights. I pick up the iPad and begin scrolling through the system settings. There is a hidden folder Tiffany used to back up her phone, every night at midnight. It is almost time. The clock on the wall ticks toward 12. Tiffany is busy bragging to Mom about her new legal strategy. They don't notice me working in the corner. I find the folder and bypass the secondary encryption. It isn't just about the money or the scholarship. There are voice recordings. Tiffany has a habit of recording her conversations to use as leverage later. I find the one labeled dinner talk from 2 weeks ago. I press play, and the room goes silent. The recording is crystal clear. It is Patricia's voice, discussing a plan to stage the theft to get me sent to boarding school. She admits she never liked having a daughter who was smarter than her. Tiffany giggles on the tape, promising to play the part of the victim perfectly. My father stares at his wife, his expression one of pure horror. This isn't just a mistake or a lie. It is a conspiracy. Patricia's wine glass slips from her hand. The wine glass shatters against the tile, splashing red liquid like a fresh wound. Patricia's face drains of all color as her own recorded voice fills the kitchen. It is a confession of malice. She admits to orchestrating the theft to force me into a distant boarding school. Tiffany's recorded giggle is a sharp, jagged needle in the silence. The legal loophole of the shared trust cannot protect them from criminal conspiracy. My father stares at the phone, his hands clenching into white, knuckled fists. I didn't just find a recording, I tell them. My voice is as cold as the storm outside. I found the bank logs. Tiffany didn't just spend the money on a bag. She used Mom's private login to hide the paper trail. Patricia looks at Tiffany, her eyes widening with a new kind of betrayal. She realized her golden child had been stealing from her too. The alliance between them collapses in an instant. They aren't partners anymore. They are just two people drowning in their own lies. The front door opens again as the sheriff returns. He didn't leave. He was waiting for the digital forensic report my father requested. He sees the shattered glass and the recordings still playing on the counter. This isn't a domestic dispute anymore, he says. It is a felony fraud investigation. He pulls out 2 sets of metal handcuffs. They catch the light, gleaming with a terrifying finality. Patricia begins to weep, but this time nobody moves to comfort her. Her reign is over. Tiffany tries to run toward the stairs, but the sheriff is faster. He catches her arm and pivots her toward the wall. "You can't do this," she screams. "I have rights. You are a minor," the officer replies, "but this evidence goes to a judge." My father stands by the window, watching the rain finally begin to slow. He looks at me and nods once. It is a silent promise of a future without them. The heavy iron gate will never lock me out again. The house feels cavernous as they are led away for a second time. This time, there are no lawyers and no loopholes to save them. The recording is the nail in the coffin. My father sits at the table and deletes the group chat from the big screen. He replaces it with a photo of my grandmother smiling. "She would have wanted you to have this house," he says quietly. "The legal trust belongs solely to me now. I am finally the master of my own fate." I wake up the next morning to the smell of coffee and a clear sky. The atmospheric river has passed, leaving the world washed clean and bright. My phone is fully charged. There is a new email from the STEM initiative. They have cleared the sabotage and confirmed my spot. I pack my bags, but I don't feel like a runner anymore. I am a survivor. As I walk through the iron gate, I realize something. The cold never actually won.